This is day 2 of the chain rule. We're going to apply the chain rule to graphs and tables. So just keep in mind what that chain rule says. If I have a function that's made up of a composition of functions, to find the derivative, I do the derivative of, I guess, the larger function, evaluated at the interior function is what I like to call it, times the derivative of that interior function. So for example, let's say that I have a chart of x values and f and g values where my function p of x is defined as f of g of x. I'm supposed to find p prime of 2, so the derivative evaluated when x is a 2. So by definition, p prime of 2 will be f prime of g of 2 times g prime of 2. If I look at my table, g of 2 when x is 2, g looks like a -1. When x is 2, g prime of 2 looks like a 7. And so I'm now looking at f prime of -1 times 7. That -1 came from g evaluated at x equals 2. Now I need to look at f prime when x is a -1. So now when x is -1, f prime looks like it is a -12. So -12 times 7 looks like a -84. So that's a table version of the chain rule. Another version will be a graph version. So if it helps, you can make yourself a table of values and kind of approach the same way. Or if you can just see values on a graph, that's totally fine. Keep in mind the derivatives of these things. These are usually going to be piecewise linear functions. So the derivatives, you can just use rise over run to find the rate of change for each line segment. So let's say that I'm finding h prime of 0, where h is g of f of x. So f is the red function, g is the green one. By definition, h prime of 0 will be g prime of f of 0 times f prime of 0. So if I look at my graph, f of 0 is just the y value of the red function when x is 0. It looks like a -2. And then f prime of 0, that's going to be the slope of my graph at that point. If you look at when x is 0 on the red graph, you have a slope of a -1. If you just use rise over run, that line segment going from -2, -1, -1, the point in the xy plane, over to 1, -3. If you calculate that slope, or if you just do rise over run, you'll get -1. So this becomes g prime of -2 because f at 0 is -2, f prime at 0 is -1. So now what I need to do is go over to the g graph, and if I go to -2, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use rise over run to figure out the slope of g at that point. So even though at -2 it might seem kind of weird, from that point I can look and sort of eyeball it. It looks like the rise over run would be 3 over 2, so up 3 over 2. So it looks like I get 3 over 2 times -1, which is -3/2. That's pretty much it for this video. That should give you plenty of information for the questions on Schoology.